we're going to go ahead and start with what should be on your tabletop. If there's something missing, go ahead and grab that. Okay, so you have your face painting packet from yesterday. We're going to turn 1, 2, 3 to the third page is where we're going to start for today. Your tabletop is covered. You have a cup with clean water. I have not cleaned my water. Today we will be using the pointed brush. You will be using the the tiny stamped sponge today. The tiny one. Yours may be clean and may not. It should have black on it, and that's okay. You should have a half moon sponge. It's probably not clean. Hopefully you cleaned it. Remember, 5th period doesn't have time to clean. They set up and then go on their way. You and your neighbor are sharing a black palette. You have a split cake that has multiple colors. And then you have another split cake that has 2 colors. And some of you have it and some of you don't. You have a little one that has 2 colors? Yes, perfect. You guys can share that. Perfect. Oh, it is. I have one. Perfect. That one's split cake that has 2 colors, okay? And you have a split cake that has multiple colors. We're good to go. Now, last class period, probably made a mess at your table. It's messy. So just if you're wearing white, watch out, okay? Keep your phone out so you can take pictures of your work or take a picture of your table setup as we go. Yesterday we talked about what are the basic ways to use a brush and a sponge. So we did some basic techniques. We talked about being able to use your less dominant hand. So you guys have been brushing your teeth with that less dominant hand to get those muscles working. We talked about lining and what are the different techniques, what can go wrong, how to fix it, why does it go wrong, how to avoid it. Then we did some speed drills. So our speed drills are when that little kid is just antsy and you got to like 2 minutes to get in, throw something on the face and get them out of your chair because they're going to kick themselves kick their way out of your chair. So speed work is you just take the paint, just quick, dab it on and then outline quickly. Don't make it perfect and just go. Move on to the next kid, okay? So we're on the 3rd page. So if you'll go ahead and fold your packet over to the 3rd page. Do you understand that this is a flat surface? It is a just front view of the person. When you're working on an actual person, it's a 3-dimensional surface. It's rounded, it's curved, right? And you have all of this side of the face to work with. When you are drawing a drawing on paper, you draw outside of the outline of the face because whatever's outside means that it would go here. Now, if they have Dora the Explorer bangs, you got to take that in consideration. If they have a big old forehead like me, you're good because you have plenty of space to work with. If they've got really long sideburns, or their like hair is just all over because that's how little kids' hair goes, are you going to pin that back? Do you gel that back? Do you have hairspray in your kit so you can spray it down? Are you going to clip it, or is the hair just going to be in the way? Are you going to paint and the hair is going to be wrapped up in your brush or sponge? You got to take into consideration all those things, okay? When you're practicing, it's very easy because it's just paper, right? It's flat, it's not moving, and it's easy to work with. All right, so there's a few things that we're going to learn today along with we're going to do a thin butterfly on the side of the face. learn how to work with our half moon sponges. We're going to create a different shape with our small tiny sponge, and then we're going to do a rainbow using the dual and then the multiple split cake. Okay, cool? Cool. Because last class period sets up the table, and usually just we run out of time and we leave a mess, just like you leave a mess for 7th period. Their split cakes may look something like this. There's yellow somewhere in here. It's just because it was used, it's got another color on top and it's not vibrant anymore. You take a little alcohol wipe and you wipe the top surface of your split cakes to clean them up after each use, and then, you know, when you need to clean something up. So let's pretend we're going to do that. What you're going to do, don't mind my mess because I try to not use 3 a day. I try to just use 1, so I've used it already. You're going to take your napkin, you're going to dip it in your water just a teeny tiny bit. And we're going to clean up our palette. So I have green here over my yellow, so I'm just trying to get rid of that green. I'm trying not to make more of a mess than what I already have. At the same time, I'm trying not to pick up too much yellow to where I'm wasting my yellow. I just want to get some of that green out so that I don't get green on my design. Okay, if you need to use another bit of your napkin, you can. I kind of roll it to make it the size of my little palette. Dip into the water just a teeny tiny bit. And then just clean it up with your napkin. Pick up any impurities and then voila. Yeah, there's still green on my corners. I'm not going to be too picky. If you're cleaning up at the end of a makeup job, get a Q-tip, dip it in a little bit of alcohol, and then wipe it down. Okay, and it'll clean up really well. Okay, cool. Alright, so then this obviously goes trash. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with our sponge. Now, these sponges come like so. Okay, sometimes they're kind of airtight and the sides are kind of bent a little bit. You dip it in hot water, you let them soak in there, and then they expand and they get back to nice and round and fluffy. Okay, so when you're cutting sponges like this, you have to have a long blade so that way you don't cut and have a jagged edge, although sometimes it is fairly hard to cut these because they're so thick. So that way you have a nice clean edge to your sponge, and it's what you guys have on your tabletop. So to clean your sponge, and if you need another napkin, you can grab another napkin. If not, the same one is fine. You're going to take your sponge. I'm going to use the one I used earlier to show you. And you're going to put the sponge in the napkin and just squeeze. If there's any water, it'll come out. Okay. If there's any paint in there, that paint will also come out. You just have to be careful. If there's a lot of water, then it's going to drip. So see, that side did have a lot of paint. The other side, not so much. Okay. Many times, artists will have a whole box, bin, or bag of these sponges, and they will, there's napkins underneath your tables as well, by the way, that you guys can use. They're not the great napkins, but you can use them. But there's also little containers that they have where they have tons of sponges, so where they don't have to keep washing or rinsing the sponge each time. They just grab a new sponge as they go. Totally up to you how you want to do it. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a little sponge and we're going to dip it into our water. And pick up and dip down and pick up and dip down, pick up, dip down, pick up. So you're just allowing the sponge to soak up water gently, and then go ahead and soak it in there and squeeze. Soak it in there, dip it a little bit further, squeeze. Soak it in there, dip it a little bit further, squeeze, and one last time soak the whole thing and squeeze the whole thing. That is the first time when you first grab a sponge. You want to do that to the sponge for the first time, just to kind of prep the sponge. Once the sponge is nice and pliable and it's got the water absorbed initially, then it'll absorb the water better the second go around. So I'm going to dip my sponge back in my water, squeeze it out a little good bit. I want some water in my sponge, but not too much. And then we're going to go ahead and take my sponge. Now, if you take a look, my sponge is the same width as my palette. Okay? I got paint all over me, sorry. Okay? So I don't want to swipe down this way because I'm going to blend my pink and yellow together. I want that line in the middle, just like we practiced with the brush. So if I want, I'm going to do my butterfly here. Well, I'll explain that later. Never mind. Okay, the line in the middle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to put my sponge down, wipe a couple of times, and then I'm going to just push down slightly and let it soak. Just give it a second. Just let her simmer a little bit. This absorbs, and then go ahead and start to wipe. When you start to wipe, you see the yellow going into the pink and the pink going into the yellow. I'm going to say my colors, but you refer to whatever colors you're using. Okay? And when you turn it around, you now see that. Now I'm going to try to do it wrong. I came out perfectly last class period. Sometimes I can do it, sometimes I can't, so hopefully it comes out wrong, but I'm going to show you the why. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a very long number 3. So we're going to start here. And we're going to go 1 and 2. Yes. So start on the forehead and you're going to go into the corner of the eye, that's 1, and then down to the corner of the lip, that's 3. So it did. It came out wrong and that came out perfect. Huh? Okay. So I want to show you why this happens. Okay. Do you see all, and you can't always tell with skin, but can you see all these empty holes right here on the page? Yeah. Okay, do you have some? Maybe? No? Okay. Is your page crinkly? Do you have a puddle, a pool of water? Then you have too much water on your sponge. Now, the reason why this would happen is what you experienced with your brush the first time. It's too dry. It's too dry. There's not enough liquid in here. So then you run out of paint as you go. When you're working with sponges, when you flip the sponge over, you'll see some bits and pieces that the sponge, you'll be able to, like right here, that you see there's barely any paint right here. If you see that here anywhere, that means that this is going to happen. So you need to make sure, and this is why I don't like doing this, I feel it's very wasteful, but this is why they do this. So go ahead and take your sponge, put it back, the right colors on the right side, put the line right in the middle. And artists will go in and they will go back and forth and really dig that sponge into the color to jam the color into the sponge. I get it. I get why they do that. I don't love it because I feel like it's wasteful, but they're doing this all day long to hundreds of little kids, so they're going to use that color. If I'm doing this to one client or one practice, I feel like I'm just wasting. I'm going to show you why in just a second. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to come again, and I'm going to come in down and down. Just going to go over. Okay. If you still have spots empty, that sponge still doesn't have enough paint. If now you're tearing your paper, it's because it's too wet. So what we're going to do now is we are going to repeat the same thing, but now we're going to close the number 3. My colors are going to mush together. That's okay. Yours will too. You're going to close the number 3 like so. And so to make like the number 8. So you made the number 3. Now you're going to close the number 3 with wide letter C's and make like a number 8. Few mistakes here. When we do the rainbow, I'm going to teach you how to make a good edge. Because here at the bottom, there really isn't an edge unless if you create one. Okay, so I'm going to teach you how to do that. Okay, from here, we are then going to take our sponge. If there's ever like a weird little hanging piece on your sponge, make sure to cut it off or pull it off because it will ruin your design. So what we're going to do is we're going to perfect our design. Here, for example, I have some yellow missing. So I'm going to come in with my yellow and I'm going to edge up my side of my butterfly. I'm going to use the corner of my sponge to make me a really nice tip of the wing. I'm using the tip corner edge of my sponge. Okay, I'm going to bring it down. And then I'm going to bring it down one more time. Okay. Okay, you're laying down your foundational shape. Alright, let's put the sponge to the side of this page. You're going to take, look how much you got in here. Okay, my yellow mixed with my pink. I didn't keep my colors on the right side. We're going to talk about that in a minute. And then I got a muddy color. Okay, keep that in mind. Here, we're going to go ahead and put your sponge down and bring down. And then go make another line. See how far you can get across the paper before you run out of paint. Now, don't reload your sponge, just with what's left over. On my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line, my yellow's running out. I just about colored this whole baby's face, entire face, with how much I loaded on my sponge. Now, when you buy professional products, this could cost you $25. This little square could cost you $25. If you buy like Tag, the professional ones, it's maybe this in length. It's this size but a rectangle. They're like, I don't know, $50, $60. They're expensive if you buy the good expensive brands. Okay. This for me is wasteful if I'm just doing a small butterfly on the side of a kid's face. Because if once I paint my butterfly, I'm gonna rinse this down the drain. So then I'm rinsing my money down the drain. Does that make sense? So when they come in and they really go in like that, yeah, it loads your sponge, but I feel like it's just wasteful. So pay attention to when you're loading your brushes and your sponges, how much product are you putting in your tool that you're just gonna end up putting in down the drain. Okay? Alright, so just keep that in mind. Second thing, you have your split cake, the colors aren't in a certain spot. When you load your sponge, your colors are on a certain spot. When you come back in to your design, as we're gonna see in our rainbow in a minute, you have to keep the right colors on the right side. If not, especially if it's like red and green, when you mix it together, do you know what color you get? Brown. Right? And so if this was red and this was green and then I flip my sponge, now I got brown. So it's not Christmas anymore, it's who knows what, right? It's a poopy day. So you've got to make sure to avoid this muddiness. Keep your color on the right side. Now if you have to turn your sponge, if you got to reload your sponge, if you got to transition to a brush, whatever you need to do, keep the colors on the right side. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and take our liner brush, dip it into our water, let it soak, tap it in the napkin, and we're going to go ahead and load up some black on our pointed brush, our detailing brush. My brush is way too thick for what I needed to do, but we're going to roll with it, okay? I should have a much thinner brush. Okay, so with our little butterfly that we have going on here, first we laid down our foundational work, our foundation shape, which is somewhat the shape of the wing of a butterfly, sorta. If it looks perfect, great, and if it doesn't, don't worry. It just sorta looks like a butterfly. If a little kid is kicking and screaming, okay, bye, put 2 little eyeballs on it, antennas, and out the door. They got a butterfly in the face, right? But if they're gonna sit there and let you play and adjust and jazz it up, then we do that. So you're gonna go ahead and take, and you're gonna outline your butterfly. My brush was a little bit dry. And then I'm gonna outline the bottom, working from the inside corner of the brush, of the eye. You can make thick lines, thin lines, just depends on what you want your design to be or look like or do. I remember yesterday we talked about if it does not line up correctly, what do you do?
Take it off.
Leave it there.
Okay.
You can add lines, stripes, swirlies, curlicues. Okay. You're just making C shapes. You're just making parentheses. You're just making lines. Okay. You can also just tap. Tap the brush. Tap the brush. Tap the brush. The more you push, the more of a line you're going to get. Okay. Little dots, like 3 little dots or 2 little dots, are going to be your little kind of staple as far as how to add little specks and spots to your design so that it looks more intricate. They're literally just take the point of the brush and just tap, tap, tap. Typically they come in little clusters of 3, sometimes in little clusters of 2. Sometimes it's just a random dot. Don't make it too random because then it just doesn't look right. You can make a line of diminishing or ascending designs by pushing the brush down just a teeny tiny bit and pushing it harder or more pressure as you move up or down the line. Okay. You can add little designs and swirls and curlicues outside of the design. Now remember we talked about this is the front of the face. Whatever we draw on the outside, like from the ear up, this actually goes right here on the forehead and in front of the ear, on the side of the face. This picture just doesn't show the side of the face. This right here can go here on the side of the cheek and even down into the neck. Now if they're wearing a turtleneck, then obviously you don't want to get the clothes dirty, so you don't go that low. So you just adjust your butterfly and your design accordingly. Okay. You can add more to it. You don't have to. On the outside, you can definitely just add little lines and such. It will just help your design. And then the little butterfly head. And the little wing, the little antenna. Okay. Again, any way that you make your brush move is fine. There's no one certain way to do a butterfly. There are lots of ways to do a butterfly. Okay. The more elaborate that you make your face paint, the nicer it's gonna look, the more intricate it's gonna look. And elaborate doesn't mean difficult. Elaborate just means put more swirls in there, put more dots in there, throw a little bit of gems and glitter and things of the sort in there. Okay. All right, I know we love decorating our little butterfly, but we're gonna move on to the next thing. So let's go ahead and flip our page. Hopefully that dries decently, fairly well before we get some dirty. And colors, and I know we guys are working with random colors, I understand that, but know that colors are very important. It's important what color you use, especially when you're working with the split kit. If the colors don't go together, then it's not going to look good no matter how cute it is. Okay. Alright, so the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to use our split cake that has the multiple colors. I'm going to take my napkin. I'm going to just gently rub down. And clean my palette. Okay? Alright, so we're going to go ahead and take our opposite side. So we use the pink, so now we're going to turn it. And we're going to use this bottom side. Gotta clean our sponge though, so it's, decently clean. You're gonna dip it into your water and squeeze, dip it into your water and squeeze. You're gonna do this several times. You can't just dip it in the water and leave it there because it's gonna absorb. Dip it, squeeze it, dip it and squeeze it, dip it and squeeze it. Yeah, if you have threaded jewelry, be careful, it'll stain your jewelry. So once you dip it and squeeze, dip it and squeeze, dip it and squeeze, and give it a good squeeze, when you tap it on your napkin, it should be like your brush and be fairly clean. Okay. You can pick up just a teeny tiny bit of water, just a little bit, don't go too crazy. And when you got your water, then you can go ahead and come in and you're gonna go ahead and wipe over your little palette. Now I'm gonna show you the wrong ways and things that can go wrong, and then I'm going to show you how to fix them and or how to avoid them and or why they happen. So I'm laying down my sponge over my little palette. It's going vertical in the direction I'm going to swipe. I'm letting the colors just get absorbed by the sponge, and I'm going to swipe down. Swipe, swipe, swipe. Okay. I did a decent job last class period of making it wrong. I don't know if it's hit or miss, so hopefully I do it wrong. Let's see what happens. So remember when we do with the brush, you put a line right here and you put a line right here and you connect A to B? We're going to do that here. We're going to have an imaginary line from the corner of the eyebrow to the corner of the eyebrow. Okay, so here we go. I gotta do it wrong. Okay, I kind of couldn't do it. My sponge had too much water. I kind of couldn't do it wrong, but I kind of did it wrong. So, okay. Just imagine for me, okay? Do you see right here where there's color missing? Last class period I was able to do it in the yellow. I had my yellow missing, but I couldn't this time. That's okay. Imagine. Whenever you do a line, you do a rainbow, okay? And that happens. Sometimes just wipe it down and just start over. Because like we did our butterfly here, if you have to go over it again and you got colors that don't go well together, when you go back over it, you're going to have mush. Then you don't have your rainbow distinct colors. So sometimes it's best just to wipe it. But let's say you can't wipe it. Let's say you don't have a wipe. Let's say you're in a hurry. Whatever the case may be. And this happens. Let me tell you the why it happens. One, like you said, is too dry. Mine, in my case, it was too wet. But this too dry. Two, do you see how it's kind of thin here and it's thicker here and thicker here? Okay, look at your sponge this way. When you push it down, you immediately naturally want to squeeze the sponge. So sometimes we do this. So turn your sponge like this, squeeze it sideways, and look what happens. Do you see how you change the shape of your lines? So then your rainbow, now the lines have now changed. Here's another thing. When you're going to push down, not only are you squeezing like this, but sometimes we push down with our top fingers to push down against the skin of the paper. When that happens, you will, like here, I pushed down and then I lifted my finger and I lost pressure. And so now I did not push down that part of the sponge here, so then there's color missing. Last class period, I was able to do that with my yellow, and you saw the gap, the yellow was gone. And the reason being is that when you change the shape of, remember how we did the sponge yesterday? If I were to squeeze my sponge like this, what shape am I going to get? Not a circle, right? So if I squeeze my sponge see, there's too much water in it. If I squeeze my sponge this way or from the top, you're changing the shape. Super, super important to make sure that you are understanding the sponge has a shape. You've got to follow, you got to lay off of the squeezing, okay? So let's go back. Oh, here's another thing. Do you see how here it's not a straight line? And you see how here it's just, we talked about a little bit ago, it's not a straight line? Take a look at the edge right here. You have a straight line on your sponge. Use it. So when you're here, start by like this. Look, put your sponge on the corner edge so you create the line. Kind of like when we stood the flat brush up perpendicular. And then when you come to the very end, when you're sweeping or swiping, end with the sponge upright so that you create that perfect line at the end. Use what your sponge is offering you. So let's try that again. Let's do a second row. You gotta try to keep the colors where they are. So now that you know all of that, you know not to squeeze the sponge, you know not to push down. You're just gently going to sway from one side to the other side. Now, remember, you're gonna start upright using the corner, push down, sway, go slow, there's no rush. Try to stay on the same color track and then end with a line. I didn't do a very good job here on the corner, but do you see this line now? Now there's a line. And there's a better line here. Instead of just a whoosh, because you wiped your sponge. Okay? Now, anytime you do a rainbow, there's always clouds at the end of the rainbow because this sometimes is a difficult line to make. So take your small rounded sponge. Tap it into your black. I know what black clouds. Okay, we're going to be just dark for a minute. We don't have white. Okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to tap, tap, tap to make a cloud using the round of our sponge. We're just tapping to make us a cloud. So you can go ahead and start getting go. Okay, that's fine. Okay, just put your packet away. And then don't wait for me to tell you, you just start going, okay? Because I'm going to forget, okay? Alright, so that is how you make your clouds. Now let's go ahead and make some accent pieces. So a star is a line, a shorter line, and a shorter line. Now you can make little tick marks, like an X. Should you want to put a diamond in the middle, you can put a diamond in the middle. You don't have to. And again, our little accents are 3 or 2 little dots. They can be of different sizes, different shapes. Use the very tip of the brush. My brush is super, super big for what I'm trying to do. But you use a really, really thin brush. A little bit of specks here and there. And you're done. Now if you want to be cute, take your finger while it's wet, take your finger, dip it in glitter, and then tap over the clouds and you have a glittery rainbow. You can, the clouds should typically be white, okay? But we didn't have white today. You outline the clouds with the black or with a blue to make it really cute. Like a dark pastel blue. Bye ladies, have a good one. Okay. Any questions on today's designs? Alright. Yeah. Don't forget to take pictures of your design. So senior year, you can pull up your pictures and laugh at your designs that you created or be impressed on how good you are or have gotten since freshman year. And then also so you can go home and practice. Remember that we are going to be doing different events where you're going to be doing these designs to little people. Okay? Go ahead and start cleaning up.